Good day, everyone. I want to welcome you to another episode of Saheed, the Mental Health Therapist. This particular topic we're having today is going to be very interesting because it affects a lot of people, irrespective of where you belong to, irrespective of the class you belong to. Either you are rich, either you are poor, either you are black or white. It doesn't matter. This particular mental problem affects everyone, and that is why this is quite very important to me, and that's why I'm actually talking about this today. But don't forget, I remain my humble self. My name is Saheed Ipaye Olatunde. As you all know, I work as a support worker and healthcare assistant here in the UK, where I support people with different learning disability, cognitive impairments, physical disabilities, and so many other mental issues. So that is why I'm actually talking about this particular topic now, because I've witnessed a lot of people going through this particular situation. And what is this situation? It's called depression. A lot of people have heard about this, I'm sure, and I've seen a lot of people going through depression. I've seen how they've been able to manage their depression, and I've seen how we can effectively manage our depression. So that's why, and I know that a lot of people out there are really suffering from one form of depression or another, and quite a lot of people doesn't even understand how we can actually manage this depression or what this depression is all about. We have a lot of friends around us, we have families that are going through one or two phases of depression, but unfortunately we don't really even understand what they are going through, talk less of knowing how to actually manage their depression. But then, what is depression? I'm sure quite a lot of people have been using the word I'm being depressed, I'm this and that, but we really don't even understand what depression is. In a very simple state, depression is a state of mind that is mostly characterized by low mood and aversion of any form of activity. This simply implies that whenever anyone is going through any phase of depression, they are actually very low in their mood. They don't really like talking to people. They don't want to associate themselves with people. They de-associate themselves with people, anybody around them, and they don't want to be involved in any form of activity. So whenever you are seeing people going through any phase of unnecessary low mood, unnecessarily aversion of activity, we should be very wary of that. We should be very careful and observe these persons very well, because they might actually be going through a phase of depression. Although we understand that there will always be situational factors that will affect our mood sometimes, but however, whenever we see people unnecessarily trying to avoid being around people, or trying to avoid talking to people, trying to avoid any form of activity that is actually normally they usually involve themselves into it before, but unfortunately they started averting themselves, they started withdrawing themselves from being part of any form of activity, we should know that this person is likely to be going through a form of depression. So what are the kinds of depression? We have quite a lot of kinds of depression and types of depression, but today I'll be discussing majorly on two kinds of depression. And the first one I'll be talking about is called major depressive disorder. This is a particular disorder that is characterized by persistent sadness, despair, low mood, insomnia, and even suicidal ideation. And this kind of depression is mostly lasts for about 2 weeks. Whenever you see people around you, when they start trying to unnecessarily withdraw themselves from people, trying to unnecessarily stop talking to people, they don't really want to associate themselves with people any longer, and this is going about 2 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, it's going towards 2 weeks. We should be careful and try to be very observant if this person is not going through a form of what we call the major depressive disorder, and there should be a quick intervention. And the next kind of depression we can always talk about is what we call the persistent depressive disorder, and this is a form of disorder that is characterized by a mild or major depressive episode which may last for about 2 years. You get to see people unnecessarily becoming lonely, trying to be devastated, they feel displeased, they feel unhappy most times. And when you see people like this and you observe them, this situation is going towards a month, 2 months, 3 months, we should be very careful about this kind of people, because they can be experiencing what we call the persistent depressive disorder. There are quite a lot of other kinds or types of depression. We have a lot of people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which can be a form of depression. We have a lot of other forms of depression or kinds of depression that people are actually suffering from. But majorly, we are looking at these two today because whatever forms or kinds of depression you are actually going through falls within these two major categories. It can actually either be major depressive disorder or peradventure it can be a persistent depressive disorder. So when people are suffering from any form of depression, we should be very careful not for it to last to about 2 weeks, because if it's going towards 2 weeks, that means the person is already tilting towards a major depressive disorder. And if it's over a week, if it's going towards a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and it's tilting towards a year, 2 years, so apparently the person is already suffering from what we call the persistent depressive disorder. So then, what are the signs and symptoms of depression? Apparently, what is common among different age group is that they feel so lonely to themselves. They feel withdrawn whenever they are experiencing depression. But there are different age groups have some certain form of signs and symptoms that we can observe. For children, we have different form of signs and symptoms that we can see in them. For teenagers, we have signs that we can see among teenagers. For younger adults, we have signs that we can observe among them. For middle-aged adults and for older adults. So today we'll be looking at children, teenagers, younger adults, middle-aged adults, and older adults. For every parent, whenever you see your children becoming unnecessarily anxious, acting sick, feeling bizarre, or clinging to their parent, or trying to avoid going to school regularly, we should be very careful and be very observant that if this person is not really suffering from any form of depression. Whenever children are experiencing this kind of signs and symptoms, they are likely to be having something that is going to be making them feel depressed. And when you see teenagers and you see that they are easily frustrated, they feel restless, they have a low self-esteem, that they couldn't even talk to people, they feel unnecessarily sad most of the time that you see them. And as a teenager, when they are experiencing this kind of signs and symptoms, they are apparently experiencing a form of depression. When you look at the younger adult that is experiencing any form of depression, you see that they feel irritated easily and they have a pessimistic outlook on life. They really feel negative about situations, about life. Whenever you're having a conversation with them, or what you'll be hearing from them is negativity. They don't feel optimistic about their future. They don't really feel happy about anything. Whatever you're having with them, they always see the negative part of it. Whenever you see a younger adult experiencing this kind of signs or symptoms, you should be careful if this person is not experiencing any form of depression. And when you look at the middle-aged adults, you see that when they are suffering from depression, they have what we call the low libido. They are really not very active, especially among those people that are married, and they have insomnia. They don't like sleeping. They think about situations a lot, and whenever maybe they sleep, they tend to wake up very early. When you are experiencing this kind of sign as a married man or a married woman, seeing your partner experience any of these signs, you should be careful to know that this person might actually be suffering from a form of depression or not. And when you look at an older adults, you see that they try to experience their sadness, and they try to actually hide this form of sadness because they don't want people to know that they are being depressed. But most of the time, you will definitely see sadness written all over them, and you should be careful and try as much as possible to dig deep to know that if this person is not suffering from any form of depression or not. So what are the causes of depression? There are quite a lot of factors that can actually contribute to the cause of depression. We have but the major ones that we're talking about here today, we'll be looking at abuse. Abuse is one of the major factors that actually causes depression for a lot of people. And let's look at the situation of rape, which is a form of sexual abuse. This is one of the major factors that can lead to depression, especially for women, although men are also being raped, and this also affects their mindset, which can also lead to depression. So any form of abuse, be it sexual abuse, even emotional abuse, when you see a child that is being bullied or by their peers or even by their parents, you tend to understand it. You tend to see that these kind of children are always being depressed. Also, you look at relationship problems. The relationship problem is also one of the major factors that causes depression among people, especially in this current society. There are a lot of breakups and divorce all over the place. You see a lot of people being depressed as a result of these relationship breakups. So that's why when you see any relationship, we should try as much as possible to find a way of making it work, or try as much as possible to be sure that we are not going to hurt ourselves, because relationship problem has actually caused a lot of problem in a lot of family, among a lot of youth, or among, because whenever people are being in any form of relationship and they put in their minds and all their heart into it, whenever there is a problem within this relationship, we tend to see that either of the party have a tendency of being depressed. Likewise, we can be looking at excessive stress. Excessive stress is also one of the major factors of depression. Whenever an individual is being excessively stressed, they tend to have a form of depression. We have physical illness. Physical illness is also a kind of one of the causes of depression, because whenever someone is necessarily sick, they tend to think a lot, they tend to have a kind of depression. We have a low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is also one of the major factors that can actually lead to depression. When someone is unable to express themselves, they are always shy to talk to people, they are always shy to socialize with people. These kind of people tend to have some form of depression. So what are the coping strategies of dealing with depression? There are quite a lot of strategies that can be used to actually manage people with depression. But basically, we'll be looking at the social strategies here today. We have lifestyle changes, we have exercise, we have diet and nutrition, we have support. But basically, I will be talking mainly on two of these strategies. I'll be looking at the lifestyle changes and support. Whenever we experience any form of depression, or we have someone that is going through any form of depression in our environment, one of the major strategies we can actually use to manage the individual depression is for us to find a way of changing their lifestyle. If they have a particular routine that they always go through every day, we can always find a way of changing that routine. Let's say, for instance, someone is always indoor, the person doesn't really go out and is experiencing a form of depression. One of the major things we can start doing is to ensure that the person goes out a lot, try to find a way of him socializing with people, try to ensure that we change the statutory routine that the person is used to, and find something to distract the person from always being alone. So we can always find a way of changing the lifestyle, changing the daily habit. If the person is always interested in sitting alone without talking to people, we should find a way of ensuring that we try to make sure that people around him, people are always around the person, and they find a way of always talking to the person at every point in time. We can also look at the issue of support. One of the major effective strategy is to ensure that we have a family support. Whenever we see anyone experiencing any form of depression, or we have someone that is experiencing a depression, or we ourselves are experiencing a form of depression, we should see that we are always around our family. There should be family support, a brother and sister, mother, father. They should be there to always support the person and try to convince the person, try to talk to the person, encourage the person about life, and making sure that life is going to be better for the person. And more so, we have the friend support. The friend support is also a very good strategy. Friends that they are very comfortable with, that they are used to, should always be around them. They should always find a way of talking to them and making sure that they make them happy at every point in time. This major strategy can actually be used to manage people with depression. We have exercise as well. People that are experiencing any form of depression, when they go for exercise, they tend to be relaxed, they tend to be happy. One of the major exercises they can actually try to involve themselves into is yoga. And we have diet and nutrition. People that have been depressed, it's advisable for them to actually eat very well, have a very good fish, fruits, vegetable, proteins that will make them look very healthy and happy. So we can always look about these major strategies whenever we are experiencing any form of depression, or we have someone that is going through any form of depression. Although there are quite a lot of other strategies which are actually medical. Maybe in our next episode we can talk about other form of coping strategies. We have the antidepressant that can actually be used for people that are being depressed. So but today we're only looking at the social aspect of it. In our next section we'll be talking majorly on the medical aspect of it. So before I just end this conversation, I will appreciate you all if you can always click on the subscribe button and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I'll always be bringing out quite a lot of other mental health challenges, and we'll be discussing mostly on other mental health issues. So I appreciate you all for following my channel. Thank you very much for listening to this video, and God bless you. Thank you.